I'm Olivia, 32 years old, and for the longest time, I thought a family dinner invite meant love and togetherness. I never imagined it could mean betrayal. The night it all happened, my parents slid a stack of papers across the table at me, wearing smiles that felt so fake they almost looked painted on. For a second, I didn't understand what was happening. Then I saw the numbers on those papers. A loan, $38,000. I just sat there, stunned. They wanted me to sign it, to help my younger brother Ethan send his son to an expensive private school. That was the night I realized how deep the favoritism in my family ran. But what they didn't know was that before I even drove to their house that evening, I had already purchased a one-way plane ticket to leave their lives behind for good. I'm telling this story now from thousands of miles away. Free, finally. But before I get to the part where I left, let me take you back to where it all started, so you can really understand how things got this bad. Growing up in our middle-class home in Columbus, Ohio, I never questioned why my parents, Robert and Linda, treated Ethan and me differently. Ethan is 4 years younger than me, and back then, I just assumed they treated us differently because of our age, or maybe because I was a girl. Our house was nice, 4 bedrooms, a good school, district, a big yard that my dad kept perfectly trimmed every weekend. We weren't rich, but we had enough. Or at least, that's what I believed as a kid. Things started to feel strange when I turned 16. A lot of my friends were getting cars for their birthdays, or at least getting driving lessons paid for by their parents. When my birthday came, I didn't get either of those things. Instead, my parents sat me down and said, "Olivia, we think it's time you learned responsibility. We set up an interview for you at the grocery store this weekend. Mrs. Harris, the manager, owes me a favor." I was speechless. I thought maybe they were joking, but within 2 weeks, I was officially working 20 hours a week after school. And every weekend, my parents said they were doing me a favor by teaching me life skills and making me independent. And I believed them because, well, they were my parents. Why wouldn't I trust them? Meanwhile, Ethan was 12 and living a completely different life. He had the best football gear money could buy. My parents spent their weekends driving him to games and paying for private coaches. Ethan has real potential. My dad would brag. He could earn a football scholarship one day. The contrast between us was sharp, but at that age, I didn't fully see it yet. When I turned 18, I had been working for 2 years and managed to save up about $3,000. I used it to buy my first car, a used Honda Civic with 120,000 miles and a weird rattling noise no mechanic could ever fix. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine. I was proud because I had earned it myself. 2 years later, when Ethan turned 16, my parents surprised him with a brand new Ford Focus. It wasn't a luxury car, but it was shiny and new. Their reason: "Ethan's football practices run late," my mum said. "We can't always pick him up. He needs reliable transportation." As if my commitments had been less important, it wasn't just cars. Clothes, school supplies, even the smallest things followed the same pattern. I learned to shop clearance racks and budget my grocery store paychecks carefully. Ethan, he just asked for things, and they appeared. The latest sneakers, sure. A graphing calculator for school, done. The trendy jeans all his friends were wearing. Of course, whenever I pointed out the difference, Mum would brush it off. Ethan's at an age where fitting in is really important. You've always been so mature and practical, Olivia. We're so proud of you for that. Their praise for me was always about being independent and responsible. But what they really meant was, we're not going to help you, so you'd better figure it out yourself. During my junior year of high school, I overheard a conversation that confirmed everything I'd been feeling. I was getting a glass of water when I heard my parents talking in the living room. "We should have enough for Ethan's full college tuition by the time he graduates," Dad said. especially if he gets any kind of athletic scholarship. What about Olivia's fund? Mom asked. There was a pause. Dad finally said, well, we always planned for hers to be more limited. She's already proving she can make her own way. With her grades, she'll probably get scholarships on her own. I froze. They had always told me they had college funds for both of us. They just never mentioned that mine was basically empty. I went to my room that night without saying a word, but something inside me shifted. From that point on, I knew I was on my own. When senior year came, I threw myself into scholarships. I applied for 23 different ones, staying up late every night, writing essays after my work shifts and homework. By graduation, I had won 7 scholarships, totaling about $8,000 for my first year of college. When I proudly told my parents, Mum patted my hand and said, "See, we knew you'd figure it out." Dad added that independence will serve you well in life, Olivia. Neither of them mentioned how much they were going to contribute. So I finally asked. Mum looked uncomfortable and said, "We've set aside $12,000 for you, but that's really all we can manage with our other expenses." Their other expenses, a brand new finished basement, complete with a home theater, so Ethan and his friends would have a cool place to hang out. Graduation should have been my moment to shine. I was valedictorian, giving a speech I had worked on for weeks. My parents sat in the crowd, clapping at all the right times and taking photos. But after the ceremony, they rushed out to go to Ethan's football scrimmage. "You understand, right, honey?" Mum said. "There's a coach from Central State who might be there. It could be a big opportunity for Ethan." They didn't even stay to finish dinner with me. They just left me there, alone, with half-eaten cake and a check they suggested I could cover using my graduation gift money. When it was time to leave for college, I packed up my old Honda Civic by myself and drove to my state university. I was scared but also hopeful. I thought, this is my fresh start. But those old patterns didn't disappear just because I moved away. In fact, they only got worse. My dorm room was small, shared with a roommate named Brooke. For the first time in my life, I could make my own decisions, stay up late, eat ice cream for breakfast, do whatever I wanted. That freedom lasted exactly 2 weeks. Then I got my first tuition bill reminder. Even with scholarships and the $12,000 my parents gave me, I still owed about $6,000 per semester. And that didn't include books or living expenses. The financial aid office helped me get student loans, but it was clear I'd need to work to survive. I got a job at the university bookstore, 20 hours a week. When that wasn't enough, I added 10 more hours at a nearby coffee shop. My days started at 5:30 a.m. at the coffee shop, then classes, then a bookstore shift at night, followed by homework until I fell asleep over my books. While other students went to parties and football games, my life revolved around work and study. Sleep became optional, and through it all, my parents never asked how I was really doing. Their weekly calls were always the same. How are your classes? Are you eating enough? Are you being careful with your money? Never once are you happy? Are you making friends? Are you okay? I never asked them for help, because deep down, I already knew the answer would be no. As my first year of college went on, things only got harder. My parents, Robert and Linda, came to visit a few times, but every visit left me feeling worse. Instead of being supportive, they were critical. "Your apartment is in such a rough neighborhood," Dad said once, frowning at my small off-campus place. "This furniture looks so worn out," Mum added, looking at my second-hand couch and thrift store chairs, but they didn't offer to help me improve it. They just pointed out the flaws. Whenever they took me to lunch, they'd carefully scan the menu and remind me not to order anything too expensive. "Money is tight," Olivia, Mom would whisper, as if I didn't already know. Meanwhile, I was working 2 jobs, skipping meals to save money, and doing everything I could to keep my grades high so I wouldn't lose my scholarships. While I was barely surviving, Ethan was thriving. He was finishing high school, now the star quarterback, and colleges were scouting him. When he got accepted to Midwest University with a partial athletic scholarship, my parents threw him a huge party. I couldn't afford the bus ticket home, so I missed it. Mom sent me pictures instead, balloons, a giant cake with his name on it, decorations everywhere. It hurt to see how much they celebrated him when my own milestones had passed with little recognition. 2 years later, Ethan started college at Midwest University. That's when the differences between us became even more obvious. One evening during my junior year, Mum called me, her voice filled with excitement. "Guess what, Olivia? We just finished setting up Ethan's apartment." I blinked, confused. "I thought he was living in the dorms," I said, doing mental math. Dorms were included in most tuition plans. "Well, he was going to," Mum explained. "But you know how important his sleep is for football performance. He really needs his own space to focus on his studies, too." We found him a lovely one-bedroom apartment just 10 minutes from campus. I looked around my cramped apartment, which I shared with 2 other girls to split the rent 3 ways. "That's nice," I said flatly, though my chest felt tight. "We got him all new furniture, too," Mum continued, her voice light and happy, "and a new laptop for watching game footage. The coach said it's essential for all the players." I glanced at my own old laptop sitting on the table, one corner, held together with duct tape. It was slow and constantly threatening to break down. "How's he going to pay for rent and expenses?" I asked, curious. Ethan had never worked a day in his life. There was a pause. "Oh, we're covering that," Mom admitted. "The scholarship covers most of his tuition, but we're taking care of his living expenses. Ethan needs to focus on football and school." I swallowed hard, trying to keep my voice steady. "Right, of course." When the call ended, I sat on my bed and cried. For the first time, I fully saw the truth. It wasn't about teaching me responsibility. It wasn't about preparing me for the real world. It was about the fact that they simply valued him more. They believed in Ethan's future, so they invested in it. They didn't believe in mine. From that moment on, something in me shifted. I stopped expecting fairness. I stopped expecting equal treatment. I stopped expecting anything from them. Instead, I focused on myself, on working hard, surviving, and building a future that would be completely my own. But no matter how hard I worked, the debt kept growing, even with 30 hours a week at 2 jobs and full-time classes. I still needed loans to cover tuition, books, and basic living expenses. By the time graduation was getting close, I was looking at $50,000 in student loan debt. My last semester was a blur of job applications, interviews, and final exams. When I got a job offer from a marketing firm in Chicago just 2 weeks before graduation, I cried tears of relief. The salary wasn't amazing, but it came with health insurance and, most importantly, hope. Graduation day came with warm weather and a clear sky. I had maintained a 3.8 GPA despite my brutal schedule. I should have been proud. I was proud that my parents showed up just before the ceremony started. They hugged me quickly, snapped a few photos, then rushed off right after it ended. "We need to get back for Ethan's spring football game," Dad said as they left. "We promised we'd help set up the tailgate," Mom added. I stood there holding a card they gave me. Inside was a $50 gift card to a home goods store. "For your new place," Mum said. "Every little bit helps, right?" I smiled tightly and thanked them, even though it felt like a joke. That night, I celebrated with my roommates and a few friends from class. We toasted with cheap champagne and talked about our dreams for the future. As we laughed and shared memories, I realized something important. I might not have a supportive family, but I had built something for myself. I had built strength, independence, and self-reliance, and no one could ever take that away. 2 weeks later, I packed everything into my still rattling Honda Civic and drove to Chicago to start my new life. The day I arrived, I saw my student loan balance and felt a heavy weight in my chest. The 6-month grace period before repayment was already ticking down. My first apartment in Chicago was tiny, barely enough room to turn around, but it was mine. I filled it with second-hand furniture and cheap finds from discount stores. My starting salary sounded good at first, but once taxes, health insurance, and retirement contributions came out, it didn't stretch very far. And once my loan payments started, $600 a month, there was almost nothing left over. I learned to budget down to the last penny, packed lunches every day, free events for entertainment, even taught myself to cut my own hair using YouTube videos. It was hard, but at least I was doing it on my own. 3 months into my new life, Mum called. "We're expecting you home for Thanksgiving." "Of course," she said as if it were already decided. "Grandma and Grandpa will be there. The whole family will be together." I hesitated. "I don't know if I can make it," I admitted. "I just started this job and don't have much vacation time yet." That was partly true. The bigger truth was that I couldn't afford the $300 round-trip bus ticket. Not with my first loan payment due soon. "Surely they'll give you Thanksgiving off," Mum said, sounding annoyed. "I'll see what I can do," I promised, even though I already knew the answer. 2 days later, I sent an email saying I wouldn't be able to come. Thanksgiving Day came, and I spent it alone in my little apartment. I bought a rotisserie chicken and a box of instant mashed potatoes. I watched old movies on my laptop and tried to ignore the loneliness. When I called home that evening to say Happy Thanksgiving, Dad's voice was sharp. "Ethan drove 5 hours to be here after practice yesterday," he said. "Family should be a priority, Olivia." What he didn't say was that Ethan drove home in the car they bought him, with gas money they probably gave him, to a house where a free meal and love were guaranteed. The comparison burned by Christmas. I didn't even try to go home. I stayed in Chicago and worked extra hours instead. Mum put me on speakerphone during the family gathering so everyone could say hello. "This is Olivia," she announced to the room. "She's working so hard, being very independent." My uncle laughed and said, "Well, maybe if you'd chosen a better career, you wouldn't be struggling so much. Business majors are a dime a dozen." No one defended me. I heard Ethan laughing in the background before he started talking about his football team's latest victory. I stayed quiet, staring at my tiny apartment walls, feeling completely invisible. As my first year in Chicago went by, I worked harder than ever. My focus was simple: pay off my debt and create a stable life for myself. Every extra dollar I earned went straight to my student loans. I skipped dinners out, never bought new clothes unless absolutely necessary, and spent my weekends doing freelance design work to bring in extra income. It was exhausting, but I had a goal: freedom. Meanwhile, my parents kept me updated on Ethan's life, whether I asked or not. By May, Ethan was about to graduate from college. "Are you coming to the ceremony?" Mum asked one Sunday evening during our weekly call. I hesitated. The truth was, I couldn't afford the time off work or the travel costs. But even deeper than that, I didn't want to go. I couldn't stand the thought of watching my parents beam with pride at Ethan's graduation when mine had been treated like an afterthought. "No, I can't," I said finally. "I have a work commitment I can't reschedule." Mum sounded disappointed, but she didn't push. The day came, and I stayed in Chicago, burying myself in work. Still, photos flooded my phone, my parents glowing with pride, Ethan surrounded by friends. A fancy dinner celebration afterward. The difference was impossible to ignore. A few days later, Mum casually mentioned something that felt like a punch to the gut. "We got Ethan a new car for his graduation present," she said brightly. "Nothing too fancy, just a new Mazda to replace his Ford. He needs something reliable for job interviews." I bit my tongue. I had driven to every interview I'd ever had in my beat-up Honda Civic with 180,000 miles on it. No one had ever even offered to help me fix it, let alone buy me a new car. Instead of saying what I felt, I forced myself to reply, "That's nice. I'm sure he appreciates it." Inside, though, I was crumbling. 3 months later, Ethan announced his engagement to his college girlfriend, Chloe. My parents were overjoyed. They immediately started planning an elaborate engagement party and talking about their contribution to the wedding. "We've always set aside money for both of your weddings," Mom explained when I asked, surprised at how much they were offering to help. "It's tradition for parents to help their kids start their lives together." That was news to me. Apparently, every other tradition about financial support, like helping with college, had somehow skipped me entirely. The following summer, Ethan and Chloe's wedding was a massive event at a fancy country club. There were around 200 guests, a huge dance floor, and decorations everywhere as Ethan's only sibling. I was expected to be a bridesmaid. The dress alone cost $300, not including alterations. Then came the bridal shower, the bachelorette party, and the wedding gift. I couldn't afford any of it, so I put everything on my credit card, knowing it would take months to pay off. My carefully planned budget for student loan repayment fell apart overnight. During the reception, I stepped outside for some fresh air and overheard Dad talking to my uncle. "We were helping them with the down payment on a house as a wedding gift," Dad said proudly. "Got them into that new development on the east side of town. It's the least we can do to help them start their lives together." I froze, my stomach twisting. The least they could do. My entire college experience had been a struggle just to survive, sleeping for hours a night, working 2 jobs, and eating cheap ramen while trying to keep my grades up. And now they were casually giving Ethan and Chloe tens of thousands of dollars to start their married life. I ducked into the bathroom, locked myself in a stall, and fought back tears. When I finally returned to the reception, I plastered on a smile and went through the motions until I could leave. Back in Chicago, I threw myself into work with even more determination. I was done, hoping my parents would ever treat me equally if I wanted a good life. I had to build it myself. No help, no safety net. My performance reviews at work were excellent. My boss, Hannah, became a mentor, teaching me how to handle bigger accounts and manage clients. With every new skill I learned, I felt a little stronger, a little more in control of my future. Around this time, I met Lucas. He was an architect who lived in my building. We started with casual coffee dates, which turned into dinners, which eventually turned into weekend trips to nearby places like Michigan and Wisconsin. Lucas was kind, thoughtful, and close to his family. That part confused me. He'd casually mention having Sunday dinners with his parents or calling his sister just to check in. One night, about 6 months into our relationship, he asked, "Why don't you ever talk about your family, Olivia?" I gave my usual vague answer about growing up in Ohio and having a younger brother, but Lucas wasn't fooled. "You tense up whenever family comes up," he said gently, "and you always have an excuse not to go home for the holidays. What happened?" That night, I told him everything. I told him about the unequal treatment, the sacrifices I made, the endless favoritism shown toward Ethan. Lucas listened quietly, his expression growing more troubled with every detail. When I finally finished, he said, "Olivia, that's not normal. Families aren't supposed to play favorites like that." "Maybe I'm exaggerating," I said. Even though I knew I wasn't, some part of me still felt guilty for speaking against my parents. "You're not exaggerating," Lucas said firmly. "It explains why you're so hard on yourself. Why? You never let anyone help you. Our relationship lasted another year, but the differences between us grew. Lucas wanted to travel, go out, and build a life together, filled with fun and adventure, but I couldn't afford that. Every extra cent I had went toward my debt. The thought of depending on him financially terrified me. Eventually, we broke up. It was mutual and respectful, but it still hurt. When he left, my life felt even emptier. 5 years after graduation, I finally reached a huge milestone. I had paid off half my student loans. I had celebrated alone in my apartment with a slightly nicer bottle of wine than usual. For the first time, my balance had dropped below $25,000. I looked at that statement and whispered to myself, "You did this, Olivia, all on your own." The very next day, my boss Hannah called me into her office with big news. The company was opening a new branch in Atlanta. She wanted me to take a senior marketing position there. It came with a significant raise, more responsibilities, and a fresh start for the first time in years. I felt truly excited about my future. I accepted the position without hesitation. Before moving, I signed a lease on a nice 1-bedroom apartment in Atlanta. My first real upgrade since college. My old Honda Civic finally died just before the move, forcing me to buy a used Toyota with low mileage. As I packed, I found the $50 gift card my parents had given me at graduation. Still unused, it felt like the perfect symbol of everything they had ever given me. Almost nothing, Atlanta welcomed me. With warm weather and new possibilities, the promotion allowed me to speed up my debt repayment plan. I explored the city, joined a weekend running group, and slowly built a circle of friends. My contact with my family dwindled to short monthly calls. Most of those conversations were about Ethan and Chloe anyway, and now they're big news. Chloe was pregnant. "You're going to be an aunt," Mom said, her voice bubbling with excitement. "Ethan and Chloe are over the moon. The baby is due in July." "That's great news," I said sincerely. Even with everything that had happened, I wanted to be happy for them. Mum went on about nursery plans and baby showers. I listened quietly, feeling a mix of happiness and distance. When their baby, Noah, was born that summer, my phone filled with photos. My parents visited Ethan and Chloe constantly, bringing gifts, babysitting, and gushing over every little milestone. They seemed to live for Noah. I sent a gift basket and a card, but I didn't visit. Work was busy. And honestly, it felt easier to stay away. 8 months after Noah was born, I got a tense phone call from Mum. "Olivia," she said, her voice shaky. "Ethan lost his job." I paused, my mind racing. What happened? "The company downsized his entire department," she explained quickly. "He's been looking, of course, but the job market is tough right now. They're worried about making the mortgage payments, especially with the baby." I closed my eyes, taking a deep breath. "That's really hard," I said sincerely. "Does he have any interviews lined up?" "Not yet," Mum replied, "but your father and I are helping them out for now. We're covering their mortgage until Ethan finds something." I froze. Their mortgage. Ethan and Chloe lived in a beautiful house in a fancy neighborhood. That mortgage had to be at least $2,000 a month, probably more. They were casually paying it, while I had been forced to take on $50,000 in student loans without a single dollar of their help. "That's very generous of you," I said carefully, hiding my frustration. "It's what parents do," Mum said firmly. "We can't let them lose their home, especially with Noah. Family has to stick together during hard times." I wanted to scream. Where was this family sticking together when I was working 2 jobs, living on ramen, and wondering if I could pay my rent? But I didn't say it. Instead, I just wished Ethan luck and hung up. As Ethan's struggles grew, my career kept climbing. Asterisk, I poured myself into work, taking on the hardest projects and building a reputation as someone who could handle anything. Hannah, my boss, trusted me with a small team to manage. When I led a marketing campaign that doubled our office's revenue projections, it felt like everything I had worked for was finally paying off. For a moment, I let myself hope my parents might finally be proud of me. So, I called them with the news, my heart pounding as the phone rang. "Mom, Dad," I said, trying to hide my excitement. "I just led a huge campaign that brought in a national client. It's a big deal for the company." "That's nice, dear," Mum said distractedly. "But listen, I have to call you back. We're at Noah's swim lesson, and he's about to go in the pool." "Oh," I said quietly. "Okay. Sure." She never called back. I hung up and stared at my phone, the excitement draining out of me completely. 3 months later, I reached a personal milestone after 8 years of struggle. I made the final payment on my student loans. It felt unreal. I sat, alone in my apartment that night, staring at the confirmation email on my laptop screen. There was no one to celebrate with. No one who truly understood what it had taken to get here. The sleepless nights, the sacrifices, the years of loneliness. So I opened a bottle of champagne I'd been saving and toasted myself in the mirror. "You did this," I whispered, "all on your own." The very next day, I got an email from Dad with the subject line, "Urgent family matter." My stomach dropped. The email was short and vague. "Olivia, please call home as soon as possible. We need to have a family discussion." Panic hit me immediately. Was someone sick? Hurt? I called during my lunch break, my hands shaking. "Dad, what's going on? Is everyone okay?" I asked the moment he picked up. "Everyone's fine," he said. "But we need to talk about something important, and it's best done in person. Can you come home next weekend?" "What is this about?" I pressed, unwilling to commit without details. "It's about Ethan and his family," Dad replied. "Carefully, they're facing some challenges, and we need to discuss how we can all help, as a family." Warning bells went off in my head. Still, concern for Noah tugged at my heart. "I suppose I could fly in Friday night and leave Sunday," I said reluctantly, "but I can't stay longer than that." "That's perfect," Dad said, sounding relieved. "We'll have dinner Saturday evening. Your mom will be so happy you're coming." When I hung up, I felt uneasy. Family meetings with my parents always seemed to end with expectations being placed on me, while Ethan was coddled and protected. I called my friend Sophie that night to vent. "This sounds suspicious," Sophie said immediately after I explained. "They're being deliberately vague. They want something from you, Olivia." "I know," I sighed. "But what if it's serious? What if they really need me?" "Then go," Sophie advised, "but have an escape plan. Book your return flight for right after dinner. Don't stay overnight." That was smart. I changed my booking to fly in Saturday morning and out Saturday night on a red-eye flight. It cost me extra, but it gave me peace of mind knowing I could leave quickly. Saturday came, and I boarded the flight to Ohio. As the plane descended, my stomach churned with anxiety. I hadn't been home in almost 3 years. The last time I'd seen the house, it was full of Ethan's trophies and family photos, reminders of where I stood in the family hierarchy. When I pulled up the gravel driveway in my rental car, everything looked the same blue shutters, the same perfectly trimmed lawn, the same ceramic frog by the front steps that had been there since I was 10. But to me, it felt foreign now, like I was approaching a stranger's home. Mum greeted me at the door with a hug that felt stiff and nervous. "Olivia, you made it," she said brightly. Come in. Your dad's in the kitchen." I stepped inside and immediately noticed the renovations. New furniture, fresh paint, updated fixtures. It was clear they had spent a lot of money recently. Since we turned your old bedroom into a home gym, we set up the guest room for you, Mom added casually, as if it were nothing. I smiled politely. hiding how much that hurt. Even my childhood room had been erased at 5 o'clock sharp. The front door opened and Ethan's voice called out, "We're here." Ethan appeared with Chloe by his side, holding little Noah, Olivia. "I didn't know you were coming," he said, sounding genuinely surprised. What a nice surprise. His reaction confirmed what I suspected. My parents hadn't told him I'd be there. Chloe smiled warmly. "It's so good to see you, Olivia. You haven't even met Noah yet." I said hello and tried to greet Noah, but he buried his face in Chloe's shoulder. Shy around strangers. "He just needs time to warm up," Chloe said apologetically. Mum immediately swept Noah out of Chloe's arms. "There's my big boy," she cooed. "Grandma missed you so much. I got you a new toy truck to play with." Dad led Ethan toward the kitchen. "Come check out the new grill I got last month. 6 burners and a smoker." I stood awkwardly in the living room, feeling invisible. Chloe stayed behind with me, looking slightly embarrassed. "They get like this whenever we visit," she whispered. "It's a bit much, but they mean well." I forced a small smile and nodded. Dinner was at 6, and the table was filled with Ethan's favorite foods: pot roast, bakery dinner rolls, green bean casserole. Not a single dish was something I liked. Not one. As usual. It was clear who the evening was really for. During dinner, the conversation focused on Noah's milestones, Ethan's job search, and my parents' upcoming family trip to Disney World. "You should come with us, Olivia," Mom said suddenly. "If you can get away from work, that is." "Thanks," I replied noncommittally. "I'll have to check my schedule." As dinner went on, Noah grew restless, fussing and refusing to eat. "I'll take him upstairs to play," Chloe said. Standing up, "He needs to burn off some energy before dessert." "I'll help," Mom said immediately, jumping up to follow. The moment they left, the room grew quiet. Dad cleared his throat, glancing at Ethan. "Olivia," he began, his voice serious. "Now that we have a moment, we want to talk about the family matter I mentioned." My stomach tightened. "Okay," I said carefully. "I'm listening." "It's about Noah's future," Dad continued. "As you know, Ethan's been between jobs, and while Chloe works part-time, money has been tight. They've been getting by with our help, but there's something important we need to discuss." Mom returned, sitting down with a folder in her hands. "Noah's preschool teacher says he's very advanced for his age," Mum said proudly. "She thinks he'd thrive at a top private school." She slid glossy brochures across the table toward me. "The Franklin Academy. It's a wonderful school, preschool through 12th grade. It would give him an incredible foundation." I glanced at the smiling children in uniforms, the modern classrooms, the impressive stats about college placement. Something in my gut told me this was about to get bad. I stared at the brochures spread across the table. They looked fancy, with pictures of happy children in crisp uniforms, impressive facilities, and smiling teachers. But I noticed something missing. There were no tuition costs listed anywhere. "Sounds like a nice school," I said carefully, though my voice was flat. "But what does this have to do with me?" Dad leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. "The thing is, with Ethan between jobs right now, they can't qualify for the tuition loan on their own," he explained. "Chloe's part-time work helps, but it's not enough. And Ethan and Chloe feel very strongly that Noah should start there this fall. They don't want him to miss out." I felt a cold wave wash over me as his words sunk in. This wasn't a family dinner. It was an ambush. Mum spoke up, her tone almost pleading. "The tuition is $38,000 a year," she said, finally sliding a piece of paper toward me. It wasn't a brochure this time. It was loan paperwork. My heart started pounding. Dad added quickly, "We'd cover it ourselves, but with retirement coming up and my knee replacement surgery on the horizon, we just can't take on more debt right now." I stared at them, stunned. "What exactly are you asking me to do here?" I asked, though I already knew. Ethan finally spoke for the first time that evening. We need you to co-sign. The loan, Olivia, he said simply. Just temporarily, until I get back on my feet and find another job. My mouth went dry. For a second, I couldn't even speak. How do you even know my credit is good enough for that? I asked quietly. Dad smiled as if this was a compliment. We keep an eye on these things, he said. We're proud of how responsible you've been. You've paid off your student loans. You have a stable career, and your credit score is excellent. You're in the perfect position to help. Mom nodded eagerly. Just until Ethan's job situation improves. It's for Noah, Olivia. Surely you want what's best for your nephew, Ethan added. You don't even have kids of your own to spend money on, and your career's going so well. This is really important to us. Each word felt like a knife, twisting deeper. In that moment, a flood of memories hit me all at once. I saw myself, at 16, working late nights at the grocery store, while Ethan played video games in his room. I saw myself struggling through college. My laptop held together with duct tape, while Ethan got a brand new one because he needed it for football. I saw myself eating instant noodles in my tiny apartment, while my parents paid for Ethan's rent, his furniture, and his bills. I saw the years of unequal treatment, the sacrifices I made alone, while Ethan was showered with help and praise. And now, after everything, they expected me to risk my financial future for his child. After all we've done for you, Mom said softly, her eyes wide and fake sweet. This is your chance to give back. Family helps family, Olivia. That's what we've always taught you kids. The audacity of that statement almost made me laugh. All they'd done for me. Like giving me a $50 gift card for graduation while they bought Ethan a new car and a house down payment. Like letting me drown in student loans while paying all of Ethan's bills. I felt something inside me snap. But instead of exploding, a strange calm came over me. I need to use the bathroom, I said suddenly, standing up. Excuse me for a moment. In the hallway bathroom, I locked the door and leaned against it. Taking deep breaths, my heart was pounding, but my mind was clear for the first time in years. I pulled out my phone and checked my flight details. There were still 3 hours until departure. Plenty of time. I opened my rideshare app. There were several cars nearby, and I booked one to arrive in 15 minutes. Then I splashed water on my face and stared at myself in the mirror. You don't owe them this, I whispered to my reflection. You don't owe them anything. When I returned to the dining room, all 3 of them turned to me with expectant smiles. The pen Mom had pushed toward me still sat next to the loan papers. I need to think about this, I said carefully, keeping my voice neutral. It's a big commitment. Their faces fell in unison. What's there to think about? Ethan asked, his tone sharp. It's for Noah. I just need some time, I repeated firmly. Then I picked up my purse and added, I'm going to grab something from my car. I'll be right back. I walked calmly out the front door, my heart racing as I reached the driveway. My rideshare pulled up, arriving early, like a gift from the universe. I slid into the back seat without looking back. Airport, please, I told the driver. The car pulled away just as the house disappeared from view. My phone buzzed 20 minutes later with texts and calls, but I ignored them, staring out the window as the Ohio suburbs blurred past. I felt both numb and completely alive for the first time. I was the one leaving them behind, not the other way around. At the airport, I moved through security in a daze. The boarding, the takeoff, everything felt surreal. When the plane finally reached cruising altitude and the seatbelt sign dinged off, it hit me. I had walked out on my family. I had left without explanation, and they had no idea I was never coming back. A small smile tugged at my lips as I imagined their shocked faces when they realized I was gone. I turned off my phone completely. Whatever storm was coming, I would deal with it once I was safely back. Home in Atlanta. When I landed early Sunday morning, I stepped into my apartment and locked the door behind me. Home, safe, mine. I slept for 12 hours straight. When I finally woke up, sunlight streaming through my window, I knew it was time to face whatever chaos awaited me. With a deep breath, I turned my phone back on. The notifications flooded in instantly. 15. Missed calls from Mom. 8, from Dad. 3. Voicemails from Ethan. Dozens of angry texts. The messages started out worried. Olivia, where are you? Are you okay? Call us immediately. Then they shifted to guilt trips. Tyler is crying, asking where his aunt went. You're being incredibly selfish. We flew you out here, and this is how you repay us. Family means sticking together. Finally, they turned to outright anger. This is unacceptable behavior, Olivia. We demand you call us back now. I read them all silently, my chest tight. But I didn't respond. I needed time and space. So I deleted the voicemails and turned my phone to silent, determined to reclaim my peace, no matter how loudly they tried to pull me back in. The next few days were a blur of emotions. At first, I felt relief, deep soul-cleansing relief. For the first time in my life, there was silence. No guilt-tripping calls, no constant demands, no never-ending comparisons to Ethan. It felt like taking a full breath after years of being underwater. But then the anxiety set in. What would they do next? Would they show up at my apartment? Would they call my job and try to reach me there? My stomach churned just thinking about it. To calm myself, I decided to do something I hadn't done in a very long time. Take care of myself. The first step was reclaiming my space. I spent an entire weekend cleaning my apartment, throwing away things that reminded me of my parents or Ethan, the $50 graduation gift card. In the trash, the old photo of us at Disney World when I was a kid. Into a box at the back of my closet, out of sight, out of mind. I even rearranged my furniture, turning my tiny living room into a cozy, peaceful space filled with plants, soft blankets, and warm light. It felt like a fresh start, a physical symbol of the new boundaries I was creating. Work became my safe haven. When I walked into the office each morning, I felt focused and strong. Here, I was valued for my skills and accomplishments, not judged for my role in a broken family dynamic. Hannah, my boss, noticed my extra drive. You've been on fire lately, she told me during a one-on-one meeting. Your work has been exceptional, Olivia. Keep this up, and there's a promotion in your future. Hearing that gave me a rush of pride. It reminded me that I was capable of building something meaningful on my own terms. A week passed before my family escalated their efforts to reach me. On a Tuesday evening, my phone lit up with an incoming call from Chloe, Ethan's wife. For a moment, I considered letting it go to voicemail, but something in me softened. Chloe had always been kind, and she didn't deserve to be caught in the middle. I answered, "Hi, Chloe." "Olivia, oh my gosh," she said immediately, her voice full of relief. "I've been so worried about you. I know things got intense last weekend, but are you okay?" "I'm fine," I said simply. "Just needed some space." Chloe hesitated, then said quietly, "Listen, I want you to know that I didn't agree with what happened at dinner. Ethan and your parents blindsided you. I had no idea they were going to ask you to co-sign that loan." My throat tightened. Hearing someone finally acknowledge what I went through felt like a tiny drop of validation. "Thank you for saying that," I whispered. "They've been talking non-stop about how you abandoned the family," Chloe continued, sighing. "It's a lot. I keep telling Ethan that it wasn't fair to put you in that position." "I appreciate you trying," I said softly. "But Chloe, I need you to understand. I can't keep playing this role in their lives. It's destroying me." "I do understand," she said gently. "And for what it's worth, I think you made the right call. I just hope, one day, they see it too." We talked for a few more minutes before saying goodbye. When I hung up, I felt a mix of sadness and gratitude. At least one person in that house saw me for who I really was. The following weekend, I took myself on a little freedom date. I went to a quiet cafe I'd always wanted to try, ordered a fancy coffee without worrying about the price, and brought along a book I'd been meaning to read for months. As I sat there, sipping slowly and watching the world go by, I realized something profound. I didn't have to earn rest or joy for years. I'd been conditioned to believe that every moment of happiness had to be paid for with suffering or sacrifice. But that was a lie my family had fed me. I could build a life that felt peaceful, fulfilling, and entirely my own. Over the next month, I started taking small steps toward that life. I joined a local book club and met other women who shared my love of reading. I signed up for a pottery class on Thursday nights, something I'd always wanted to try, but never had the time or money for. I even booked a solo weekend trip to Savannah, Georgia, just because I wanted to dot each choice. Felt like reclaiming a piece of myself that had been buried under years of guilt and obligation. For the first time, I felt free, of course. My family didn't stop trying to pull me back in. One evening, Dad left a long voicemail that started calm but quickly turned into a lecture. "Olivia," his voice boomed, "you've made your point. Now it's time to grow up and take responsibility for your role in this family. Ethan is your only brother. Noah is your only nephew. When you walked out like that, you hurt all of us, especially your mother. We didn't raise you to be selfish. We raised you to understand that family comes first." I listened to the entire thing. My jaw clenched, then I deleted it, without replying. 2 days later, a package arrived at my apartment. Inside was a photo album filled with pictures of Noah, his first birthday party, his first swim lesson, his first Halloween costume. Tucked into the front was a note in Mum's handwriting. "Maybe seeing these memories will remind you of what really matters. We love you. Please come back to us." My hands trembled as I closed the album. I placed it gently in a drawer, out of sight. The manipulation was so blatant, it almost made me laugh, almost in therapy, which I finally started around this time. My therapist, Dr. Parker, helped me see the patterns clearly. "This isn't just about favoritism," Dr. Parker explained one afternoon as I sat on the couch in her warm, cozy office. "It's about control. Your parents have spent your whole life shaping you into someone who puts everyone else's needs above your own. Now that you've broken free, they don't know how to handle it." "That makes sense," I admitted, "but it still hurts. Even when I know it's manipulation, it still gets to me." "That's normal," Dr. Parker said gently. "Setting boundaries is one of the hardest things we do, especially with family. But every time you hold firm, you're teaching them how to treat you, and you're teaching yourself that you deserve peace." Her words became my mantra in the weeks that followed. By the end of that month, something incredible happened. I started to feel light. The constant heaviness that had lived in my chest since childhood was slowly lifting. I was laughing more, sleeping better, and even eating without a knot in my stomach at work. My confidence soared. I took on a huge client project and led my team to success, earning praise from senior leadership. When Hannah pulled me aside and said, "Olivia, we're recommending you for a director position next quarter," I nearly burst into tears, but this time they were happy tears. For once, my achievements weren't ignored or dismissed. They were celebrated. Then, one quiet Saturday morning, my phone rang. It was Chloe again. "Hey, Olivia," she said. Softly, "I don't want to upset you, but I thought you should know. Your parents and Ethan are planning something." My stomach tightened. "What kind of something?" "They're talking about confronting you in person," Chloe said quickly. "They think if they just show up and explain, you'll change your mind about the loan." A wave of anger and dread crashed over me. "Chloe, Thank you for warning me, I said. But they need to understand something very clearly. I will not be manipulated into this, ever. There was silence on the other end. Then Chloe whispered, I believe you, Olivia. I hope they do too. When we hung up, I sat in my quiet apartment and took a deep, steady breath. They could plan whatever dramatic intervention they wanted. They could show up, yell, cry, beg, it didn't matter. Because for the first time in my life, I had the power. I didn't owe them money. I didn't owe them explanations. I didn't owe them anything. I was free. A week after Chloe's warning, I was having a peaceful Saturday morning. I'd just finished my coffee and was sitting by the window, watching the early sun spill across the quiet street, when there was a loud knock. At my door, my stomach dropped. It was too early for visitors, and no one had texted to say they were stopping by. I froze for a moment, then slowly approached the door. When I looked through the peephole, my heart sank. Standing there were Mum, Dad, and Ethan. No Chloe, no Noah, just the 3 people I least wanted to see. I didn't open the door right away. They knocked again, harder this time. Olivia. Mom's voice rang out, full of false cheer. Sweetheart, we know you're in there. Please, just let us in. We need to talk. Every muscle in my body tensed. I knew if I let them in, they would take over my space, my time, my peace. But if I didn't, they'd probably just keep knocking or make a scene in the hallway. With a deep, steadying breath, I unlatched the door and opened it halfway. What are you doing here? I asked flatly. Mom's smile was wide and too bright. Oh, honey, we were just so worried about you. You've been ignoring our calls, and we thought maybe if we came in person, we could clear the air. Behind her, Dad crossed his arms. This has gone on long enough, Olivia. We need to resolve this today. Ethan gave me a weak grin, like he wanted to play the peacemaker. Can we come in, just to talk? My jaw clenched. 10 minutes, I said finally, and then you leave. I stepped aside reluctantly, and they filed into my apartment, immediately making themselves at home. Mum glanced around, her nose wrinkling. Your place is cozy, she said, clearly unimpressed. It's mine, I replied simply, closing the door behind them. We sat down in the living room, me in my favorite armchair, them crowded together on the couch like a united front. For a moment, no one spoke. Finally, Dad cleared his throat. Olivia, we're here because we love you, he began in that serious lecturing tone I'd known since childhood. We know things got heated last time, but this family needs to come together. It's time to put your differences aside and do what's right. My stomach twisted. I already knew what doing what's right meant to them. Mum picked up where he left off, her voice trembling slightly. Sweetheart, you don't understand how important this is for Noah. That school isn't just any school. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. It could set him up for success his whole life. I stayed silent, letting her words hang in the air. Ethan and Chloe are doing everything they can, she continued, tears welling in her eyes. But without your help, they won't be able to afford it. And Noah deserves better than public school. My hands curled into fists in my lap. Finally, Ethan spoke up, his tone frustrated. Liv, come on. You're making this harder than it needs to be. It's just a signature. You wouldn't even have to pay anything. You'd just be helping us get approved. Once I get another job, we'll take over completely. I stared at him, shocked at how little he understood. Ethan, I said slowly, do you have any idea what you're asking? Me to risk. If you default, I'm the one who will be stuck with that debt. My credit will be ruined. Everything I've worked for could disappear. He rolled his eyes. You're overreacting. I'd never let that happen. The words hit me like déjà vu every time my parents had minimized my feelings. Every time Ethan had been given a free pass, I felt my pulse pounding in my ears. No, I said sharply. my voice cutting through the room. They all froze. "No," Dad repeated, his brows knitting together. "No," I said again, louder this time. "I'm not signing anything. I'm not taking on your debt. I am done being the family scapegoat." Mom's mouth fell open in shock. "Olivia, listen to yourself. We're talking about your nephew's future. And where were you when I needed help with my future?" I snapped. "When I was 16, working at a grocery store while Ethan had private football coaches. When I was in college, drowning it. Student loans, while you paid for Ethan's apartment and his furniture. When you gave him a down payment for a house while I slept on a futon in a cramped apartment." My voice cracked, but I didn't stop. Where was this big, supportive family when I was struggling to survive? The room went silent. For once, none of them had a quick reply. Finally, Mom whispered, "We were trying to teach you independence." "Independence?" I laughed bitterly. "No, you were showing me that no matter how hard I worked, Ethan would always come first. You've been pouring money, time, and love into him for decades, and now you expect me to do the same." I pointed at the loan paperwork sticking out of Dad's briefcase. "Well, guess what? I'm not playing along anymore. You want to send Noah to a private school? Figure it out yourselves. I am not your solution." Ethan's face flushed red. "Wow," he said coldly. "Way to punish a kid for mistakes his parents made. Noah didn't do anything to you." I looked him straight in the eye. "I love Noah. None of this is his fault, but I will not destroy my life to fix yours. That's your responsibility, Ethan, not mine." He opened his mouth to argue, but I held up a hand to stop him. "No more excuses. No more guilt trips. I've sacrificed enough." Dad's voice grew sharp and commanding. "Olivia, think very carefully about what you're saying. Family loyalty is everything. If you walk away from this, you're walking away from us." My heart pounded, but my voice stayed steady. "Then maybe that's what needs to happen." Mom gasped as if I'd slapped her. "You don't mean that," she whispered. "I do," I said firmly. "For years, I've been bending over backward to earn a place in this family, and it was never enough now. For the first time, I'm putting myself first." I stood up, my hands shaking but my back straight. "This conversation is over. You need to leave." Mum burst into tears, clutching Dad's arm. "Robert, do something," she wailed. Dad just glared at me, his jaw tight. "You'll regret this, Olivia," he said darkly. "When you're alone and you need us, don't expect us to be there." I met his gaze without flinching. "I've been alone my whole life," I said quietly, "and I survived. I'll keep surviving." They stormed out of my apartment, slamming the door so hard the picture frames rattled. I sank into my armchair, my whole body trembling. For a few minutes, I just sat there, breathing deeply, letting the silence wash over me. Then, slowly, a wave of relief spread through me. It was over, truly over. For the first time, I had stood my ground, and I hadn't backed down. Later that night, I called Chloe. When she answered, her voice was hushed, as if she didn't want Ethan to hear. "Olivia, are you okay? They've just got home, and they're very upset." "I'm fine," I said calmly. "They came here to pressure me, and I said no. I made it very clear that my answer isn't changing." Chloe sighed deeply. "I wish I could say I'm surprised, but thank you for standing up for yourself. I know it couldn't have been easy." "It wasn't," I admitted, "but it was necessary." After we hung up, I curled up in bed and stared at the ceiling, my mind finally quiet. For so long, I'd been afraid of what would happen if I stood up to them, if I said no. Now I knew the truth. Their power over me had only ever existed because I allowed it, and I didn't allow it anymore. The next morning, I woke up to a quiet apartment filled with soft sunlight. For the first time in years, my chest didn't feel heavy. There was no dread of answering my phone, no fear of the next guilt-laden message. No crushing weight of expectations, just peace. I lay there for a while, listening to the hum of the city outside my window. I felt free, completely, wholly free. The storm had passed, and I had survived. When I finally checked my phone, there were dozens of unread texts and voicemails. Mom, please call me back. I'm so worried, Dad. You've made a huge mistake. We need to fix this. Ethan can't believe you'd do this to us. Unbelievable. The messages came in waves, pleading, angry, guilt-tripping, then back to sweet and forgiving. I deleted them all without listening. They no longer had any power over me then. For the first time ever, I blocked their numbers. The instant I did, a deep, powerful calm washed over me. Later that week, I had a session with Dr. Parker. As soon as I sat down, she gave me a warm smile. You look lighter today, Olivia. What changed? I took a deep breath and told her everything. The surprise visit, the confrontation, the final moment when I told them to leave. When I finished, she nodded, her eyes kind but proud. That was an incredibly brave thing you did, she said. Softly, setting boundaries with family is one of the hardest challenges there is. You didn't just protect yourself, you broke a lifelong cycle. Tears welled in my eyes, but they were tears of relief this time. I thought I'd feel guilty, I admitted, but instead I just feel free. That's because you finally took control of your life, she said, and now you get to decide what comes next. Those words stayed with me over the next few weeks. Every day felt like a small victory, every peaceful morning, every phone call I didn't have to dread, every evening I spent doing things that brought me joy. I went to my pottery class, went for long runs through the park, and even hosted a small dinner for my book club. It felt strange, but beautiful, to create memories that were mine alone. At work, my career continued to thrive. When Hannah officially offered me the director position she'd hinted at, I accepted with confidence. The raise was substantial, enough to finally build a solid savings account and even start planning for future travel. For the first time in my life, I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. After work one Friday, my team surprised me with cupcakes and a little toast to celebrate my promotion. As I stood there laughing and clinking glasses with them, I realized something profound. I'd built a family of my own, not by blood, but by choice. These people saw me, valued me, and supported me without strings attached. One quiet evening, I sat on my balcony with a cup of tea, reflecting on everything that had happened. If someone had told 16-year-old me, the girl bagging groceries to save for a beat-up car, that one day she'd pay off every cent of her debt, move to a new city, and stand up to her entire family, she wouldn't have believed it. But here I was. I'd walked through fire and come out stronger, and most importantly, I'd learned that my worth didn't depend on anyone else's approval. A few weeks later, Chloe sent me a simple text message from an unknown number. Hi Olivia, it's Chloe. I wanted you to know that I respect your decision. I hope, someday, we can have a relationship separate from all the drama. Noah deserves to know his aunt. My heart ached as I read it, but I smiled too. I replied, Thank you, Chloe. I'd like that someday too. Please give Noah a hug for me. It was a small connection, but it felt honest. A fragile bridge that maybe, just maybe, could grow stronger with time. One Sunday morning, as I watered my plants and listened to my favorite playlist, I thought about the word family. For so long, I believed family meant obligation, sacrifice, giving, until there was nothing left of me. But now, I understood the truth. Family isn't about who shares your DNA. It's about who respects you, supports you, and shows up for you without conditions. And if that wasn't my parents and Ethan, that was okay, because I could build a family of my own choosing. That evening, I sat down with my journal and wrote out my goals for the next year. travel to 2 new countries, build my savings to 6 months of expenses, take a writing class, buy a nicer couch, continue therapy, protect my peace no matter what. I looked at the list and felt a surge of excitement. For once, my future wasn't about fixing anyone else's problems. It was about me as the sun set. I curled up on my current lumpy couch and smiled to myself. My parents thought I'd regret walking away. They thought I'd come crawling back, desperate for their approval. But they were wrong. I didn't regret a single thing. I had chosen myself, and in doing so, I had gained a life filled with freedom, possibility, and hope. Sometimes, when I think back to that night at their house, the papers on the table, their expectant faces, the crushing weight of their expectations, I realized something important. They didn't know. I had already bought my ticket home. They thought they were trapping me, cornering me into submission, but I had been planning my escape long before. That dinner, the moment I boarded that plane, I wasn't just leaving Ohio. I was leaving behind a lifetime of pain and stepping into my own future. And now, every time I look around my little apartment, every time I laugh with friends or take a walk in the city or sip coffee on my balcony, I remember this. I am free, I am strong, and I will never ever let anyone take that away from me again.